I never knew a 7-second video could dismantle my entire world. But that's all it took. 7 seconds of laughter, 7 seconds of truth, and a lifetime of lies came crashing down. I was alone in my apartment, scrolling through messages, when my Aunt Carol's name popped up. She'd sent me a video. I thought it was one of her usual funny animal clips, so I tapped it without thinking. The first thing I saw was my family's dining room. My mom, my brother Derek, and my cousin Jenna were sitting around the table, mid-dinner, plates half empty, wine glasses full. I almost smiled, thinking they'd recorded a little message for me since I was working late. But they weren't looking at the camera. They were laughing among themselves, and then my mom's voice cut through the noise. "She's just a pathetic failure," she said, shaking her head with a smirk. I felt the air leave my lungs. I thought I'd misheard. But then my brother Derek snorted, raising his glass. "Good thing she's still paying our bills, right?" They all laughed. A deep belly laugh that echoed in my empty apartment like a gunshot. My mom added, "She should be grateful we let her do it. Honestly, it's the only thing she's good for." The video stopped abruptly, and I just sat there, frozen, the phone trembling in my hand. I replayed it. Again. And again. Each time, their words sliced deeper. I memorized the way my mom's lips curled around pathetic failure and how my brother's eyes crinkled with genuine amusement. This wasn't a joke they'd apologize for later. This was their truth, finally caught on camera. Within seconds, Aunt Carol deleted the message and sent a frantic text, "Sorry, wrong video. That was meant for your uncle. Ignore it. Ignore it." As if I could unhear my own mother call me a failure while I was paying the mortgage on the house she was sitting in. But I texted back, "No worries," didn't even open it. I didn't want her to panic. I needed time to think. I saved the video to my hidden folder and sat on my couch until the sun came up, replaying every memory of my life through this new, horrific lens. Let me take you back a bit. My name is Elena, and for the last 8 years, I've been the family provider. My dad walked out when I was 17, leaving my mom with a mountain of debt and a 14-year-old Derek who was already showing signs of becoming the golden child who could do no wrong. I was the oldest daughter, so I stepped up. I gave up a partial scholarship to art school, took a soul-crushing corporate sales job, and started paying bills. At first, I felt like a hero. Mom would cry and tell me I was her angel. Derek would awkwardly thank me for covering his video games or his car insurance. We were a team, scarred but surviving. Over time, the need grew. Mom's mortgage, then a second mortgage when she wanted to renovate the kitchen. Derek's community college tuition, then his transfer to a state university, then his living expenses, which suspiciously included weekends at beach hotels. I paid for everything without question. I told myself it was love. Every time I logged into my banking app and set up another automatic transfer, I felt a strange sense of purpose. They needed me, and needing me felt almost like being wanted. But the video shattered that illusion. As I sat in the dark, I began replaying past interactions. The way Mom would only call when a bill was due. The way Derek's birthday gifts to me were always items he clearly wanted for himself. The way they forgot to invite me to family dinners when I had a late shift, but always remembered to ask for money the next morning. I recalled Mom saying a few months ago, "You're so lucky you have us, or you'd have nothing to work for." At the time, I'd laughed it off. Now, it made me sick. They didn't love me, they loved my direct deposit. I was their personal ATM, wrapped in the disguise of a daughter and sister. And I'd been so desperate for their approval that I never saw it. The next morning, Aunt Carol called, sounding breathless. "Did you really not see it?" "Oh, thank goodness." It was just a silly dinner where Derek was doing impressions, nothing important. Impressions. She lied too. Maybe she was embarrassed, maybe complicit, I didn't care. I played along, my voice sweet and steady. "Oh, I got busy and forgot to watch." No harm done. I could practically hear her relief. That's when I realized they all saw me as predictable, harmless Elena, the money machine who never questioned them. But something had snapped. I started watching my family like a scientist observing a parasite. I requested a day off work and drove past Mom's house. Her new garden furniture was something I'd paid for 6 weeks ago, a necessary expense she'd sobbed about. There she was, laughing on the phone, sipping wine on a Tuesday afternoon, zero sign of the financial stress she constantly described. I checked Derek's social media, private of course, but through a mutual friend's account, I saw photos of him at a casino with his buddies, tagged "Big Wins Tonight." He was gambling with my money. That evening, I did something I'd never done before. I audited my own bank statements. I traced every Zelle transfer, every check, every automatic withdrawal from the past 3 years. Over $230,000. That's a house. That's my freedom. That's the dream I'd buried. I found a payment to Jenna's Med Spa, $2,000 for laser treatments for my cousin, someone I barely spoke to. I found a recurring transfer labeled Mom Allowance that had quietly increased by $400 a month. I had been bled dry in plain sight, and I thanked them for the opportunity. But I said nothing. I showed up to our next family dinner 2 days later with a smile and a store-bought pie. Mom greeted me with a hug that felt like a snake coiling. "Elena, honey, I was just thinking, the property tax is coming up, and you know how tight things are." Her eyes were so earnest, so perfectly rehearsed. I nodded warmly. "Of course, Mom. Send me the bill." Derek high-fived me from across the room. "You're the best, sis. Real talk, my car needs new tires. Could you spot me?" I looked at him, at his smug, greedy face that I used to see as boyish charm. "Absolutely," I said, and I meant it in a way he couldn't possibly understand. I was going to give them everything they deserved. They had no idea that the video was burned into my brain. They didn't know I had become a ghost in my own life, watching, waiting. That night, I sat at my desk and opened the budgeting spreadsheet I'd used for years to track their payments. Only this time, I created a new column, Termination Plan. I researched tenant laws, consulted a lawyer friend about financial abuse, and drafted the letters I'd need. I discovered that the mortgage on Mom's house was actually a co-loan because I'd co-signed it years ago when her credit was wrecked. If I pulled my name or stopped paying, the house would go into default within 60 days and her credit would be obliterated. Derek's tuition was on my credit card as an authorized user. One call and his payment for next semester would bounce. The next payment was due in 48 hours. The mortgage, the car insurance, Derek's tuition installment, all of it queued up in my bank's bill pay. I stared at the screen, my finger hovering over the mouse. They thought I was their loyal puppet, but the strings were always in my hands. I didn't feel sad anymore. I felt a cold, clean clarity, like ice forming over a wound. The payment was due in 2 days, and for the first time in my adult life, I was going to press cancel. But what happened next was even more devastating than I could have planned, because I didn't just stop the money. I set a trap that would expose every single one of them to the world. The 2 days passed in a strange, suspended silence. I woke up on the morning the payments were due, made myself a cup of coffee, and opened my banking app with the calm precision of a surgeon. Mortgage canceled. Car insurance canceled. Derek's tuition installment canceled. Credit card connected to his authorized user account, frozen and reported lost. I didn't just stop the money, I severed every financial artery connecting me to that house. Within hours, I had changed all my bank passwords, removed their saved payment info, and formally disenrolled myself from the cosign mortgage's automatic payment system. The bank confirmed that without my contribution, the loan would enter a 30-day grace period before default proceedings began. My mother's financial lifeline had been cut with a single click. But I wasn't done yet. I knew the explosion would come, and I wanted to capture every second of it. I set my phone to record all incoming calls, a feature I'd never bothered with before. I didn't have to wait long. By late afternoon, my mother's name lit up the screen. I answered, voice sweet. "Hey, Mom, what's up?" The shriek that followed nearly distorted my speaker. "Elena, why is the mortgage payment showing as failed? The bank just called. What did you do?" I listened to her rant for a full minute, cataloging the raw panic beneath the fury. Then Derek's texts poured in, a cascade of rage and disbelief. "My tuition didn't go through, you idiot. Fix it now." I saved every message. I recorded every voicemail. That evening, I sat in my apartment and played them back, not with sadness, but with the cold satisfaction of gathering evidence. I contacted a lawyer, an old friend from high school who specialized in family financial disputes. When I told her the story and sent her the video, the bank records, and the threatening messages, she let out a low whistle. "Elena, this is textbook financial abuse. With the cosign mortgage and authorized credit, we can file a partition action to force the sale of the house and reclaim your equitable share. We can also send a demand letter detailing potential fraud claims for the money they used under false pretenses." I gave her the green light. The letters went out the next morning by certified mail. But that was just the legal machinery grinding. The real reckoning, the one that would destroy their reputations forever, had to be personal. I planned a dinner. Not for them, for everyone. I called it a family appreciation evening, and I mailed beautiful paper invitations to every aunt, uncle, cousin, and grandparent I could think of. The message read, "After all these years of support, I want to give back to the people who mean the most. Please join me for a special announcement." My mother, thinking I'd had a moment of weakness and was about to publicly double down on my financial servitude, RSVP'd with enthusiasm. Derek said he'd bring his new girlfriend. Aunt Carol hesitated, her voice shaky on the phone, but I reassured her sweetly. "Please come, Aunt Carol. I really want you there." She had no idea what I was about to do. The evening arrived. I rented a small private room at a nice restaurant, the kind of place my family always expected me to pay for. Soft lighting, long table, everyone dressed up. My mom hugged me tightly, whispering, "I knew you'd come to your senses." Derek clapped me on the back like we were old pals. Aunt Carol sat at the far end, avoiding my eyes. Once the appetizers were served and the wine was poured, I stood up and clinked my glass. The room fell into an expectant hush. "Thank you all for coming," I began, my voice steady. "For years, I've tried to be the best daughter, the best sister, the best niece I could be. I gave up my dreams to make sure this family never struggled. I paid mortgages, tuition, cars, medical bills, even vacations. And I did it because I believed we were a team." I paused, letting the warmth of my words settle. My mom nodded proudly. "But recently," I continued, "I received a video that showed me exactly what my family thinks of me." I turned to the large TV screen mounted on the wall, which I discreetly connected to my phone. Aunt Carol's face went white. I pressed play. The video filled the room. My mom's voice, sharp and clear, "She's just a pathetic failure." Then Derek, "Good thing she's still paying our bills." And finally, my mom's final line, "She should be grateful we let her do it." The laughter echoed, then the clip stopped on a freeze frame of their smiling faces. Dead silence. Forks clattered onto plates. My grandmother gasped, "Dear God." My mom stumbled to her feet, her expression a swirl of horror and rage. "Elena, that's not, it was a joke. I didn't let her finish." "A joke," I said, and I clicked to the next slide. It was a spreadsheet, stark and damning, showing the $230,000 drained from my accounts over 3 years. I highlighted the med spa payment for Jenna, the casino withdrawals from Derek, the second mortgage for a kitchen renovation I'd never agreed to. This was the joke, wasn't it? Me, working 60-hour weeks while you gambled my money and called me a failure behind my back. Derek lunged forward, his face twisted. "You recorded that? That's illegal." I smiled. "No, Aunt Carol recorded it and sent it to me by mistake. I just decided to share." That was the moment their world collapsed. My uncle stood up, disgusted, pulling his wife away. "We're not part of this. Carol, you knew about this." Aunt Carol burst into tears, stammering denials. Other relatives began to grab their coats. My mom was screaming now, a torrent of insults and pleas, but the room was emptying. I hadn't just exposed their cruelty, I'd exposed their grift, and in front of the entire family, there was no coming back from that. I wasn't finished with the legal fallout. The next slide revealed the certified demand letter from my lawyer. As of this morning, all financial support has been permanently terminated. The mortgage is in default. Derek's tuition is canceled. And, because I'm a co-owner of the house, my attorney has filed a partition action. That means you either buy me out, which you can't afford, or the house goes on the market and I get my share. Given the evidence of financial exploitation, we're also pursuing fraud charges for the money spent under false pretenses. Derek's face crumbled. He started shouting about how I was ruining his future, but my grandfather, a man of few words, simply stood and looked at my mother. I never thought I'd see the day my own daughter would behave like this. You're on your own. He walked out and my grandmother followed, weeping. In the span of 10 minutes, my mother lost her reputation, her home security, and her family's respect. Derek lost his education and his golden child status, reduced to a panicked boy realizing his meal ticket had evaporated. And Aunt Carol, the accidental messenger, sat alone at the table, sobbing, the architect of their exposure, but also a bystander to the cruelty. I walked toward the door, but my mom grabbed my arm. You can't do this. You'll destroy us. I looked at her, and for the first time, I felt nothing, no guilt, no longing, no regret. You already destroyed me, Mom. I'm just making it official. What happened next was exactly what I'd planned. The partition suit forced the sale of the house within 4 months. My mother, unable to secure a loan, had to move into a cramped apartment with Derek, who dropped out of college and got a dead-end job. The fraud investigation didn't result in criminal charges, but left a permanent stain. Their social circle evaporated. Relatives who'd once admired our close-knit family now refused to speak their names. I changed my number, moved to a new city, and used my recovered equity to open a small art studio, the dream I'd buried for a decade. I never saw them again. I didn't have to. The video, which I posted privately to a family-only group with a timestamp and a simple caption, "Gratitude," served as their permanent epitaph. Every time they tried to rebuild, someone would remember and the door would close. They didn't just lose me, they lost everything.